And ladies, we're going to call you up. These are families that have been impacted by this. I want to give you a first look at what is the problem. What's the problem? In the last 3 to 4 years. That's the problem, ladies. That's the problem. That's the problem. 8,300 locations have opened up, doing $8 billion worth of business in Texas, preying on young people, preying on any adult who doesn't know what is really in the products they're buying. This is what we're talking about. Let me get to the mic. That chart shows you most of the locations in Texas of where we have THC being peddled to, and they will tell you, because I went in stores yesterday. I put out another video today where I went out on the street to do a little investigation. You'll see in the video, they will say we keep people under 21 out. I'm sure there's some good actors. I'm sure there are a lot of bad actors. And remember, people over 21 can go and buy it and give it to the kids. And if you watched our testimony in State Affairs on the bill that Senator Perry is carrying last week, you will recognize that students themselves came in and said, you have to ban THC, it's all over our schools. That's when I started really focusing on this issue about a year ago, when parents came to me as I traveled the state. Law enforcement talked to me about the issue, doctors talked to me about the issue, and so that's when we began our investigation into what's happening. We were all shocked that the Health and Human Services had in essence given permits. They're not actual license, but for these shops to open. But think about this. I mean, as popular as the most popular fast food you can think of, who opens 8,000 locations in less than 4 years, most of them since 2023? What business starts out at $8 billion in revenues? That works out, depending on the store, an average of about 100,000, maybe a month, $1 million per store, if you just do the math. And they used a loophole to get around a bill that the legislature passed in 2019 that we're going to address. Let me make it clear. There are lots of issues that we discuss between the Senate and the House, and sometimes you can have policy differences, and you work those differences out. This is not one of those bills. This is a bill that we have to ban THC and shut all of these stores down. And secondly, that includes THC that's being sold in liquor stores in drinks. There's no exception to this. This is a poison in our public, and we as the legislature, our #1 responsibility is life and death issues, and that's why this is Senate Bill 3. I want to introduce to you the author of the bill, who is passionate about this. We'll have some from law enforcement, and then we will have some of the families that have been directly impacted by this. Senator Charles Perry. Senator?
Thank you, Lieutenant
Yes,
Governor. Appreciate y'all showing up for this today. It's important that when we know a problem, we fix a problem. I want to be clear, and for context, if you guys want to go back into your archives and look at synthetic pot, there was a group called Women Against Synthetic Pot. WASP was their acronym, and we killed K2 and Spice almost immediately. Senator Huffman and I partnered in that bill because Houston had a real problem with it. Even up in rural Texas we had it. So we're talking about synthetic pot. It's not your granddad's pot. It's not that marijuana. It's different. I'm here today for several reasons. I'm here for Jacob, 27 years old, in recovery for a year. I'm here for David, 29 years old, in psychosis today. I'm here for Grace, 29, in psychosis today. I'm here for Melody, 22, addicted. I'm here for Chad Chandler, addicted and non-responsive to communications. I'm here for Leah Flores, Jesse LeBlanc. But Leah Flores, 18 years old, depression and anxiety. Violet Lanham, 20, recovery, 10 months. James Adams, 21, recovery, 7 years. I believe it's Idette, psychosis. What you hear a lot about is this stuff's going to kids. 29, 22, 29, 22, 22, 18, 20, 21. This is changing people's life in short order because it's been marketed as something that is safe and legal, and it's anything but. The deception in this industry and what they have created and the lives they have ruined is unacceptable and unnecessary. There are a few things in the legislatures we get to do that when we see something, we can be preemptive of keeping it from going further than it already has. As the modern day philosopher of Barney Fife would say, we got to nip it, and we need to nip it in the bud, and we should have done it the last couple of sessions. But the facts are clear. This is a real problem. I'll speak a little bit to it. Profit over people is never an excuse to ignore the people. That's what you hear from the industry. We're making all this money, we're providing all these jobs. I tell you, the taxes we collect does not cover the behavioral health issues that's created in addiction that the state budgets of the day have to cover. If I had been in prohibition, we wouldn't have the budget the size that we have. That's where I'm at on this issue. This is causing problems that no amount of tax dollars is going to cover the fix. But more importantly, what is the price you put on the loss that these families have suffered and generations to come will have? This is just a few of the people I know about. I'm sure it's in the thousands across this state that are dealing with the same issues. They just don't know that we're actually trying to address the issue. It's out of control. Beverages. I hear a lot that beverages. Who in what world, whose mind in what world would conceive that if you mix drug and alcohol that the end result can be anything but bad? That doesn't end well for any people. The beverage industry doesn't realize it, or maybe they do, but the molecules act differently in THC when mixed with alcohol, and your brain is more receptive and craves more of it. So it's just as bad as the stuff that you vape or get off the shelves. It cannot be exempted from this. To the lobbyists that are supporting this, I've told them they have every right to make a living, and I don't care who they represent. I will tell you, legislatures have all the prerogative on who they talk to every session when they come back. That's not a warning, that's not a threat. It's a two-way street. People that are advocating that this okay are literally creating a situation where kids, families, and lives will be changed impermanently for generations. So let your conscience be your guide. But I, as a legislature, do not have to associate myself with anybody I choose not to, other than constituents always have an open door. But I'm serious about shutting this down. I'll go back to, this is synthetic pot. I saw a survey today for one of y'all's colleagues. He has no credibility in my book anyway, but he did a poll, and I think he was talking about legitimate pot recreational use polls. Whether that's good or bad or indifferent, it is not that. It is not that animal. It is something that is synthetically made in a chemist's laboratory with no recourse or care or conscience about the impact it has. So this is not pot of yesterday. This is stuff that will change lives forever in a very negative way, and actually probably cause loss of life at the end of the day, because paranoid and schizophrenia are the attributes that are a common theme when you talk to these parents of these kids that are in this stuff. Paranoid and schizophrenia is not a good place to be, and it don't undo it. So with that, I thank you for that. We'll have some other people here to support what we're doing, but I want the message to be clear. We're serious about stopping it because of the substance that it is, and it's different than what we grew up with. It's just like a K2 or Spice-A-Rega. The quality of those products is not monitored. It goes from 30% on average all the way up to 80% THC inside of it, and you don't know what that pot is being mixed with when it was put in there. A lot of these are foreign manufacturers. It doesn't matter to me where it came from. It just needs to be gone. Thank you, guys.
You will introduce?
Chief Dye?
Thank you, Senator.
He's out of
Alan.
Allen, that's right.
Yes, sir.
Well, good morning. My name is Steve Dye. I'm the Chief of Police in Allen, and I'm also here representing the Texas Police Chiefs Association regarding our serious concerns with this illegal and open sale of these consumable THC products. The blatant circumvention and abuse of the 2018 Federal Farm Bill and the 2019 Texas legislation have resulted in a massive industry exploiting a loophole in the law to sell illegal THC and other psychoactive substances that pose significant health risk, particularly to our communities and our adolescents in our communities. Consumable THC products currently imported from other states and sold in locations throughout Texas are more potent than ever before. Many of them contain illegal Delta-9 and chemically modified Delta-8 that predominantly test well above the 0.3% threshold. In fact, undercover police investigations have found THC consumables that tested up to 78% THC concentration, which is many times more than the naturally grown marijuana of the past, which was less than 5% THC. Wholesalers and retailers often market these products as candy, chips, and cookies, covering labels to disguise and mislead on the contents. Consumers have no idea what they're consuming in these containers. And most people think that if you walk into a store and you're able to buy something from a retail establishment, it must be legal and it must be safe. With these THC consumables, neither is true. Intentional mislabeling on many products have led to accidental overdoses and increased addiction, with proven research showing that these products carry many long-term health risks, particularly to our young people. And more THC overdoses are occurring in our hospitals and county jails. We all remember, as has been mentioned, our K2 spice bath salts epidemic, in which we were able to quickly eradicate that because people were dying. These high THC consumables are no different, other than they are causing a slower, less conspicuous disability and death. And while manufacturers, wholesalers, and retailers claim they are therapeutic, we have definitive evidence showing that they know what they're selling is intoxicating. The lab reports attached to these out-of-state products are almost always inaccurate, and that many businesses are selling these dangerous products to underage kids. Most of these THC retailers are here for one specific reason: to get people high. And they have proven to be so toxic that even the state of California and other states have banned them. Texas already has a compassionate use program in place for those needing THC for medicinal purposes. So why should taxpayers bear the burden to help retailers sell for-profit products just to get people high and make law enforcement's job that much more difficult? Retailers, not law enforcement, should bear the cost of testing their products in accredited Texas laboratories before they put any product on their shelf to not include anything with THC. This THC consumable plague is in every community in Texas. As a matter of fact, the University of Houston recent survey showed that 55% of our communities are against these THC consumables, and I can tell you in North Texas, that percentage is much higher. Our position is not only that of the Texas Police Chiefs Association, but that of the Sheriff's Association of Texas, the Texas School Districts Association of Chiefs of Police, TMPA, and CLEAT. We are all united in banning these consumable THC products. Folks, Texas is better than this. So we greatly appreciate Lieutenant Governor Patrick and Senator Perry for Senate Bill 3. We are urging both the Senate and the House to pass legislation that bans consumable THC products from retail sales and enables law enforcement to effectively file, prosecute these criminal cases that are affecting the quality of life in all of our communities. Thank you very much. I'm going to introduce our District Attorney of Collin County, Greg Willis.
And we'll take questions after everyone speaks. Okay.
Yes, Greg Willis, Collin County. I'm here to just give you the perspective of a local district attorney. As district attorney, I don't just read about the impact of high-potency THC in studies. I see it firsthand. I see it in the courtroom. I see it in hospital records. I see it in shattered lives. This is not yesterday's marijuana. Daily dosing basically can make psychosis 5 times more likely. For 1 in 10 heavy users, the psychosis never lifts and it becomes a lifetime of mental illness. One hit, one habit, and the door to schizophrenia swings wide open, never fully closing again. As has been mentioned, we've been here before, K2, spice, bath salts, every time it starts the same. A new drug slips through a loophole. gets marketed as safe, as just another option. But then comes the overdoses, the psychotic breaks, and the ruined lives. But each time Texas has acted, and Texas should act again now. This crisis isn't sudden, but it's slowly. It's slowly choking the life and vigor out of our young people. It strikes not in an instant, but it tightens day by day, until bright minds break and go dark, until our courtrooms fill with cases of promising futures forever cut short, until young defendants stand before us unable to tell reality from delusion. This is not alarmism. 15% of new schizophrenia cases in young men are now linked to cannabis use disorder. How many more before we act? Senate Bill 3 is a clear and a necessary step, because if we wait, then we will be back. Only next time the cost won't be measured in percentages and studies. It will be measured in lives. Young Texans, their futures dimmed and their potential lost.
Sheriff Bill Wayburn, Tarrant County.
Thank you. Bill Wayburn, Tarrant County Sheriff. And listen, I stand here shoulder to shoulder with these guys because of the evil that is trying to be defeated. I want to make it clear that good men and women were trying to do some things when they had marijuana become a medical product. And we are not against compassionate use or medical marijuana. But what we are against is this evil that has come out of the dark room of the same place. And we need to put a stop to it. In 2017, when I became sheriff of the third largest county in Texas, the population of my jail, 25% were having difficulty with mental illness. Well, something drastically has changed in Texas, because here in 2025, nearly 70% of the jail population is dealing with mental illness. And I talked to the mental health workers over there, and there's no question that this marijuana is at the tip of the spear causing these issues. And guys, we've got a health crisis, a mental health crisis, because of this. And if we don't put a stop to it right now, it's going to get further out of hand. We've been down here asking the legislatures for mental health beds because of what? Because of this. We've been asking to add to our mental health capacity in Tarrant County because of these things. This is clearly the evil that stands before us. And I couldn't be more proud of the Lieutenant Governor and the senators here standing today that are leading the charge against it. And law enforcement across Texas will stand shoulder to shoulder, and we will stand with them. And at the end of the day, we'll go after the bad guys that have corrupted what was meant to be a compassionate, sound medical program. Thank you all for being here, and please help us spread the word.
2 points that our first 3 speakers hit on. Number one, on the compassionate use program, we're going to expand that this session in another bill. Because again, we're not against those who need medically described help. Number 2 is we've invested over $3 billion and probably higher in putting more mental health care beds and hospitals all across the state, from Tyler to Amarillo. Brand new. We put, I believe it was $2.5 billion in our budget last session, and we continue to help upload that cost to our counties. They cannot absorb it. I mentioned earlier, I put out a video this morning. I hope all of you will get that out, because a lot of people, a lot of parents, a lot of grandparents, a lot of adults who are buying from these stores really don't know what you're hearing about today. You can save lives in the media by telling the story. This is not a political or a partisan issue. This is about saving lives. I walked into a store yesterday, the first store I walked into, just at random, and I asked him to show me the products. And he said, well, here's our one gummy that's 750 milligrams. I said, it sounds pretty strong to me. He said, well, you know, I tell them to kind of take a half a gummy, you know. People have different tolerance. Yeah, they'll get really high. I went on to say later, well, you know, they get them a lot of the gas stations too. You know, if they have a fake ID, they laughed about it. There's nothing to laugh about. I want to bring up our folks here who have joined us. The families are impacted. If each one of you would come up, take 2 or 3 minutes, tell your story, introduce yourself, and The stories are just heart-wrenching.
And where's that video?
It's on my Twitter feed. It's about 4 minutes long.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Aubrey Adams. I am Director of Citizens for a Safe and Healthy Texas, and Every Brain Matters. On behalf of all Texas families that have been harmed by synthetic THC, I want to thank Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, Senator Perry, and everybody who's involved in supporting this bill, SB 3. This bill will save lives. Synthetic THC products mimic everyday foods like candies to attract children. They often have sugary flavors to mask the toxic tastes. These products pose serious mental and physical health risks, including potential death. Sonia Jimenez from Houston, Texas, wishes she could be here today, but she is in deep grief for her son Joshua. Joshua brought a product called Wedding Cake Delta 8, which caused him to have a psychotic break. The voices in his head told him to go to LA to save God's children. He was suffering. He didn't understand what was happening to his brain. And he stepped in front of a train in Pecos, Texas. He was 22 years old. Mary, from the Houston area also, is now a full-time caregiver for her adult son, who has become psychotic from synthetic THC vapes. He spends his day talking to imaginary people, not sleeping, and refusing treatment. Another family whose young adult son became addicted and experienced symptoms of psychosis from synthetic THC spent $230,000 to get their son treatment out of state due to Texas' inadequate resources. And my son in Houston experienced severe illness from Delta 8 and Delta 10, struggling to eat and drink. This condition is called cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome and can cause dehydration, seizures, and organ failure. The science is clear. THC can cause psychosis and lead to schizophrenia. It can worsen symptoms of PTSD, increase suicide risk, intensify depression and anxiety, which are two serious health issues Texas children are facing today. Any potential jobs or tax benefits from this predatory industry is overshadowed by the damage their products cause. Even Colorado has banned these synthetic THC products. Texas must do the same. Thank you. I would like to introduce my friend and fellow advocate, Shandell Strickland from Katy, Texas.
Hello, everyone. So very grateful to be here. I'm thankful for each and every one of the men and women who stand behind me in support of the Senate Bill 3. We've all heard the saying, whether we're in the airport, whether we're at a local school, whether we're at work, when you see something, you say something. And so that's why I'm here today at the Capitol to share my story with individuals who just may have not connected the dots when it comes to synthetic THC. As many have already mentioned, synthetic THC has wreaked havoc across our state. And as a mother, as a family member who's seen the tragedy firsthand, I am here to spread the news that we all need to pay attention to what is in our stores, what is in our children's hands. Synthetic THC is the issue, and it's a new age type of drug that many individuals are not aware of. I wasn't aware of it. You've heard individuals talk about psychosis. I'll tell you what experiencing psychosis is like as a mother. I had to pick up my son from a psych ward. I had to speak with a psychiatrist who explained the medication, the recovery process, and what next steps for our family would look like. From there, we spent the night in a hotel room. And for the first time in my life, I experienced being afraid of my own child. Experiencing him being in a different mental state is something that I do not want for any parent in the state of Texas, in our nation. It's something that no one should have to go through. I questioned if I should be in the hotel room with him. I questioned if I need to stay up all night. Am I going to be able to go to sleep? I've watched my son, who I love dearly, stand at the door of the restroom and take several deep breaths to calm himself down so that he could build up enough courage just to take a shower. This is totally different from the individual who I know who loves to model, loves cameras, loves the way he looks, loves to shop. Totally different. Psychosis has no place in our society at all. There are individuals who come against Senate Bill 3, who come against just the opposition to synthetic THC. They feel like we need more regulation. We don't have time for more regulation because families are at risk, lives are at risk. We are asking for a total ban of synthetic THC. As an individual who has experienced what psychosis has like, it even had an impact on my health. I was nearly at the brink of having a mental breakdown from seeing my loved one in such a situation that I couldn't fathom. I could not fathom it. But learning everything that I've learned about synthetic THC and these products that are so readily available. We all know the number of Starbucks and McDonald's. They're plentiful across the state of Texas. It's about around 2,500. But there are over 8,500 of these smoke shops and all of these liquor stores that have these products available for our children, for our adults, even for us. And unbeknownst to us, there are lies. We're told that they're healthy and they are not healthy. Right? And so I'm calling for each and every individual to learn more and to support the leadership that stands behind me in making sure that we ban synthetic THC in the state of Texas. Thank you.
Powerful. Bring up the other ladies.
They're not gonna
Okay. That's powerful. And my guess is a lot of you in the media and a lot of you who will see this press conference knew very little about this, knew very little about it. So I'm asking the media to partner with us to get the message out and tell the story. There is no excuse to keep it in beverages. There is no excuse to regulate it. There is no excuse, well, it's someone's right. Message for these businesses, a few that I visited yesterday. It's just a matter of time that someone is going to bring lawsuits against your business on the civil side for their families who have been harmed. We're going to ban your stores. We're going to ban your stores before we leave here for good, whether it's in May or July or August, whenever session is over. We in the Senate, and I believe in the House, will stand together and pass this legislation. My recommendation is, if you're watching, and I know a lot of people are watching from out there who are in this business, you might want to voluntarily close your doors because the investigations are going to continue, and I'm sure the lawsuits are about to come. You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. Talking about the beverages, I was told by someone representing the Restaurant Association that they had some restaurants that started selling alcoholic beverages in their restaurants with THC in it. And after a short time, they stopped because some of their customers were losing control after 2 beverages. Doesn't happen for most people after 2 drinks or 2 beers. You know, this is everywhere. And for our parents out there, you need to sit down and talk with your kids about this, because once again, it's being sold to them as it's just a candy and it's okay. And again, all of these plus 20s whose lives have been destroyed. Would any senator like to make a comment before we open it up? Adam Hinojosa has joined us. Anyone else like to speak? Anyone from law enforcement? Anyone? Let's open for questions. Yes.
How do you expect to significantly expand the teacup program with half a dozen dispensaries and off-site storage, but no significant expansion of qualifying medicals?
Yeah, he has.
I'd like to hear from the
Yes.
as well.
There'll be an amendment on the floor for the teacup bill 1505 when it comes up that's going to require, not may, but shall open up those 3 additional licenses that we're going to. So there'll be 6 licenses. I've been told by those particular manufacturers that if you give us satellite locations for storage, that it's the timing and the expense is having to bring it from Austin to Lubbock, and then only to return back to Austin if the person in Lubbock wasn't there to receive it. So we've addressed those. They think the satellites will get us there. We are going to make the DPS required to offer those new 3 licenses rather than maybe. So that's one way.
I'm asking about the conditions specifically, Bill. I'll do all that stuff, but how are you, will it still expand access if you're not expanding the medical conditions that qualify people for the program?
So the medical conditions that currently exist are pretty broad. Epilepsy, Charlotte's Web, I think it was, or Charlotte Law up in Colorado was the first exposure to that compassionate use conversation. She's since passed, but it really did provide relief. So epilepsy in that whole list, it's pretty, I would say, general in most of those criterias. PTSD is in there, so obviously our veteran communities that are relying on that stuff is already eligible for the teacup program. And I think where those are typically the issues that if you hear someone going to the local head shop to buy their medication or to the gas station, unfortunately, to buy their medication now, we don't dispense medication through gas stores, and convenience stores. That's the issues they raise, insomnia, those things like that are attributed to that list. So I think the list is comprehensive enough.
So insomnia, general anxiety, depression?
Yep. Those are all things that fit in one of those categories that's
You have
current.
PTSD.
Yes, correct.
There's
And
nothing more general than that.
No.
And one of the things, thank you for your question, is that when I've talked to some of those people, these stores pretty much shut down their businesses. No one was coming to them anymore. No one wanted to have a license. So we're gonna expand that. Next question.
Again, I'm detecting a theme here with HHS, going maybe too far with this.
Maybe, really far.
With the lottery commission maybe going too far with what they were
Yeah.
offering, maybe even some of the election stuff that you talked about
Yeah,
in
sure.
the past. Is this a situation where the bureaucracy in Texas is taking too many liberties and you guys have to step in more frequently?
Absolutely. It's great that we only come every other year. We function very well for being the 8th largest economy in the world. No one does the work that the Senate and the House does in 5 months, and sometimes we're here longer. But when we're gone for 12 or 18 months, in the interim, agencies kind of go their own way. And in the Lottery Commission, as you pointed out, until we went and did that video, the Lottery Commission said, we can't regulate the couriers. And then they sent a letter to the AG, can we regulate them? And then 4 days later, they banned them all. And that is a deep investigation into the potential corruption and money laundering that could be international, national, or just maybe bad actors in the Lottery Commission. We'll see what those investigations bring out. Same thing in this. We as members are in our districts. I cover the whole state, but they are talking to the folks from the House and Senate all the time. And you start to hear things bubble up, and you find out, I was shocked. I was shocked that there were so many that opened up just in the last 24 months. I think it's been several thousand just in the last couple of months. And so we said, let's look into it. And what we found was a very ugly picture. And the idea that people are profiting off this at the expense of these lives is just unacceptable. Unacceptable. Anyway.
How has HHS?
Yeah, good, Charles.
What did they do?
So to be clear, it's Dishes.
Yeah.
And so Dishes didn't do anything wrong. What happened is an industry exploited a loophole that was never intended to be part of a permitting process. And they'll use that this is legal because we've got a lawsuit that has stopped and it's in the process. Truthfully, they challenged DISH's approach to put guardrails, exactly what has happened. And because of the way they went about the process to put those rules in place for this issue that we now face that didn't get implemented, they're in the courthouse. They did not challenge, let me back up, the court has not addressed the actual merits of what that substance is and why it's bad. So when you hear the negative or the false that we are legal because we have a court that's said pause and take a look, it had nothing to do with the substance. So DISH's permitted, I think they did what they expected to do, but they permitted something totally different than what the industry did with it, to be clear. And another thing, a lot of these industry companies that have set up, and not the newest ones, but a lot of them were tobacco sellers before. So when they close their door on the hemp side, they still go back to the tobacco side. So not all of them are going to close. We've just removed something from their inventory that should have never been there to begin with. So this is not, I'm not going to throw the DISH's system under the bus. I think they did exactly what the law said they should do, and they thought they were within their purview of being able to put rules around to prevent things like this by definitions and things that they were not allowed to do, and that's what currently is in the court. I hope after this bill's passed that the court has a pretty clear picture of what the state of Texas is included to do. But DISH's, I'm not saying they couldn't have done a more diligent or better source. The enforcement actions that we've had a little bit of enforcement from it. We're going to step up enforcement. We've got money in the budget for enforcement. So, but it wasn't as much the bureaucracy, it was the industry's exploitation of the substances that were being permitted. So that's the clarity I want to leave you with on that front.
Yeah, great clarity. And to follow up on that, part of those issues are when agencies don't communicate with the legislature. So we had to find out through Bob Hall's work, the lottery sold 26 million tickets. And when all these permits were given, there was no input to us of saying, we might have a problem here. Suddenly we have 4,000 permits out there.
There's a lot that aren't licensed.
Yeah, and there are a lot that aren't licensed. They're just opening up. Okay, next question.
Senator Perry, you mentioned there was a poll out this morning about this. What was that?
I saw a poll today by one of your colleagues. I affectionately refer to him as a bottom dweller. He said 68% support THC in Texas.
The one essence is that it was done by Mike Vasily. That's the pollster that.
I don't know the source of the poll. It came from one of your reporters, is the way it was reported.
Mike Vasily is the pollster.
I can tell you this. I can appreciate that, but the guy's wrong. I don't care who does the poll.
Yeah, don't
I don't
play
care
this
the
political
polls.
cheap game here.
Here's the
It
thing.
is a political cheap. If that's what the poll says, it doesn't. Of course I do.
So we're going to turn this conversation
Right.
from the lives that were lost to
Right.
who did the poll. I'm just
Yeah.
telling you the poll probably did not. I did bring the poll up, but
Yeah.
what I clarified, if you're honest, I said synthetic THC was not polled.
Yes, it was. Yes,
It was.
Consumable in drinks. If you read
That's
the
different.
poll, you know-
That's different. The average person in this room, the average person in this room, I'm not going to argue with you. The average person in this room and the people that are listening do not understand the distinction between THC and synthetic. And you can poll it, and anybody would say THC. There are majority of people out there that like the idea of THC, so I'll just leave it with that.
That's why.
I hear you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, me too.
Senator Perry,
Yes, sir.
who are you working with in the House on this?
Um,
House leadership?
Ken King is carrying that. He's chairman of that jurisdiction and that committee. And for the most part, I think we're philosophically aligned for sure. His bill is a little different than Senate Bill 3, but we got time to bring that together. And I believe with confidence after conversation with him. And the speaker, I will tell you, and he wouldn't mind I said this, before he was speaker, we were in a car in Lubbock, Texas with a fellow representative outside of Lubbock in the same car. We were driving by, we passed a head shop, and I said, those will be closed if we're successful next session. And the individual that was outside the district said, what do you mean? I said, we're going to shut them down because of all these things we've talked about today. And at that point, then Representative Burrows said, I hope to carry that bill and ban them all. So that's where the speaker's support lies on this issue. We just got to get it over the finish line.
What's the biggest discrepancy between the two?
I would say the beverage conversation right now, and I think there's room to get that over the finish line without it in there for all the reasons we've talked about today. Okay?
Yeah, and the liquor stores ought to realize they're going to be probably subject to civil lawsuits as well. And I'm asking the main liquor stores, and there are only a few major companies that own every liquor store in the state of Texas. I'm actually asking them to withdraw their inclusion to continue. The liquor store industry needs to back up and listen to what the people are saying what the legislature is saying and say, we're not interested in this product anymore. So I'm counting on those good businessmen and women who own those companies to do the right thing. Question?
Lieutenant Governor, we have this map of
Yes.
these physical locations.
Yes.
Some of these products are still available as found and we found a lot on
Yeah.
websites that can ship these products directly
Yeah.
here. If we see any problems with enforcement, how will that be enforced?
Those coming into the state, they're violating Texas law, and we'll do whatever we can within the state to enforce it. And I hope that we would have partnerships that could cross boundaries if need to. If I don't know how we go into New Mexico to do it, but I can tell you we will find a way if there is a way. But I can't prevent what other states are doing or not doing. That's not. I'm a Texas senator. I'm responsible for 30+ million people in Texas, and how we protect them with other states. I will tell you what I've been told. Colorado and Oklahoma rule the day that they put legalized marijuana recreational. So it's a big issue that's surfacing around the country, and they're looking and trying to pull back. So I can't answer what I can do in New Mexico, but I'll find a way if there is a way.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Chair.
We're going to do interdiction just like we do today, and we do the same thing using the same tools. We're catching people coming from Colorado, we're catching people coming from Oklahoma, New Mexico, all those places. That's all happening right now. So we'll just continue to do that. We just add to the list. Well, we have task force that work with the different agencies that may be delivering that. So without talking about our methodology, we will have some people involved.
And I'll just add, one of the challenges for law enforcement, these new variants are being produced almost daily in a lab somewhere. And so you can't keep up with what is legal and what is not legal. We need a bright line rule that all THC is illegal in these products. That helps us enforce it. We need all of the testing to be done in Texas accredited labs because these products are being shipped in from out of state. The certificates of accuracy very rarely actually match what's in the product. And testing for law enforcement is very expensive. That's a hindrance to a lot of the departments. They don't have the funds. An average test on one product, one THC consumable product, is $250 for one test. So you can imagine most budgets don't afford that opportunity. So what we're also asking for is the retailers have to test their products to prove that there's no THC. They register those particular products with dishes. So when we walk into a store, we can look in the registry, and if they're selling a product that's not in the registry, then we know prima facie that it's illegal. I will tell you, because of the exploitation of these loopholes, it has made enforcement very difficult and very expensive. But I will point out that many of us are still prosecuting these cases. We have multiple pending cases in Allen that are pending criminal charges. I know there's the Carrollton chief is here, he's got some. But again, what we're hearing, and I think this is very important from a local perspective, we work for our communities. And what we are hearing from our communities is an outpouring of support for us to try to do something about these locations. We've got high school kids that are making a poor decision and going to a high school campus with one THC vape pen, and they're getting a felony charge. That's also not proper. And then they become addicted because it's so potent. The behavioral cost to try to rectify the damage has been mentioned is tremendous. But you need to understand from a local policing perspective, we're not just about filing criminal cases and putting people in jail. Our job is really holistic. We're concerned on quality of life in our community. And our main concern here is the high potency mixed with consumption at younger ages and the permanent harm that it's doing. We're the ones out there every day at the Rotary Club and the Lions Club and the Kiwanis Club hearing from people going, please do something about this. It's killing my kid or it's killing my neighbor's kid. So I think the quality of life perspective needs to be pointed out. But with the legislation that's been proposed in Senate Bill 3 and then hopefully in House Bill 28, we believe that we will actually to be able to enforce the law as it was intended and really removing the loopholes that were unintentionally created.
We're gonna wrap it up. Okay, last question. Okay, everybody has a busy life here. Yes, ma'am.
We haven't heard much from Abbott on this. Have you?
The governor and the speaker and I have talked about this. several times. We just had breakfast this morning. We're all on the same page. We're going to protect the people of Texas from THC. Last thing you just need to think about, and you had a great question. Our job is 30 million people, and our job is protecting the adults and the school children who are getting this product one way or the other. Just ask yourself this question: why are almost all of these THC stores building and opening up around schools? The idea that they say, well, we have 21 sign on the door, we don't sell, and why are they all opening up around schools? That's where they believe their market is. You don't open a business in an area that you're not selling products. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thank you. Today. In about, what time is it? I don't know. In about 2 hours.